Love is our true divine nature, and our heart serves as the intersection of the spiritual and physical, connecting our soul with our body as the conduit for anchoring our divinity onto the earth plane. Embodying our divinity is the key to our ascension and to manifesting our highest destiny in this life. The teachings of the heart are alchemy. Join spiritual mentor and channel Jennifer Spohr each week on a sacred journey to lift the veil to remembering your divinity and meet other beautiful souls who are living the path of the awakened heart. Hey everyone, I'm super excited to welcome as a guest to the show today Whitney Walker. Whitney is a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in addiction, eating disorders, trauma, and spirituality. She also works as a recovery coach and a spiritual guide. I'm super excited to have her here today and to have this fun conversation. Welcome, Whitney.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here, Jennifer. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yes, it's my absolute pleasure. We, have already spent a few minutes talking before we hit record, and I'm super excited to share your amazing energy and wisdom with everybody.
Me too. And I just have to say, I love the name of your show, Path of the Awakened Heart. And I just got called to share with the audience that a book that I read early on in my spiritual journey that really just completely opened my mind to new ideas is called The Global Heart Awakens. So, of
Oh,
course, it
wow.
reminded me of your title. If you haven't read it, I definitely recommend it. The Global Heart Awakens.
Yeah,
And
I
it's a very,
haven't.
you haven't heard of it?
No, I haven't. And who's the author?
Ooh, it's like Andrea something.
So Global Heart Awaken.
Yes. The Global
Okay.
Heart Awakens. And it's just beautiful. It was at the time, it was a lot of concepts I hadn't thought about, which is basically that we're at this turning point of humanity where we're moving from our heads to our hearts, I guess, and the path to your heart, right?
Yes.
Awakened heart. You're moving from your path to the, away from just the head and the what we're supposed to do and the competition and the greed and fear, getting into our hearts, which is what we're
Yeah,
meant to be as heart-centered beings, right?
absolutely. Yes. And that's the whole idea, right? Like the heart is the center of the spiritual and the physical. We ourselves are half heaven, half earth. So that's the whole idea, right? Is to live
Mhm.
fully embodied from our heart, fully embodied physically, but led at the same time by our soul.
Yes, which is the challenge. That's the
It
big
sure is. Yes.
venture of being on earth is like, how do I do this? My heart says this and my head's telling me this.
It's all the experiences, right? It's all of the emotions, all of the fun, all of the challenge. It's a dance.
It's a dance. It's a dance. And I just have to share, I looked it up. Anodea Judith is the author of The Global Heart
So
Awakens.
for listeners, how does the author spell their name?
Anodea and then Judith, Judith.
Perfect.
Such a
Thank
beautiful
you.
book. Highly recommend.
Yes, I definitely have to check that out. The energy around that feels amazing. So let's hear all about Whitney. So
Oh,
tell
goodness.
I know. Lots of like big energy, big questions. I would love for you to share with us what inspired you to this work.
So I would say that from an early age, I was always very drawn and curious about what was really going on for people, what was true for them. That's sort of what led me on the path to be a therapist. I was always kind of weird as a kid. Like I would ask, I liked adults for one, and I would go up and be like, "Are you happy?" or like, "How did you get your home?" or "Where are you?" Like just weird questions. And these adults were like, "Who is this kid?" It's like trying to like get to know me. But I was just always, I remember walking around the world just being like, why don't people talk about stuff? Like, why do people, we all seem closed off. We don't seem to share about what's going on. I would just was very confused. And then when I was in high school, I got to be a part of this amazing publication that was unique to my high school that was called Reality Check. And what it was a place where students could submit stories anonymously about topics that weren't often talked about, whether it was sexual assault or drug abuse or loneliness or depression or eating disorders. Every month had a different topic, and they could share their honest truth. And it just spoke directly to my soul, because that's what I value is people being able to speak and share honestly about what they're really experiencing, what they're feeling. So that was really the inception point, this sort of the first step of my journey. And then, of course, I walked the path of becoming a therapist. However, the road was very bumpy, and I experienced a lot of my own adversity and challenges and really low points. Most of it involved in just having rock bottom self-esteem, no confidence, very fearful all the time, fearful that I wasn't lovable, that I didn't belong, that I had no value or worth. And it led me to drug and alcohol abuse, to, sexual promiscuity, putting myself in dangerous situations because I didn't care about myself. And at a certain point, as I got closer to pursuing a path as a therapist, I started my own therapy because I got tired of living that way, because it's exhausting to hate yourself so much. It's exhausting to feel that way day in, day out, and to be self-destructive. I also suffered from an eating disorder for about 20 years, starting when I was 14. And, it takes a toll on you. And so I ended up getting sober, going to treatment for my eating disorder in my late 20s. And that's when I started school for it to be a therapist, because they had really helped me. And I thought, I want to be able to do the same for others. I want to turn my challenges, my defeats into something that can be powerful for others, to help them know that they're not alone and offer them what I've learned going through the muck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that got me to, okay.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and that's what got me to that point. And then I had my spiritual awakening during sobriety, where I went to the next level, which was like, because we were just talking about, as above, so below, the heavens and the earth. I got more in touch with the heavens, and I realized, oh, it's actually inherent that we are of value, and I don't have to fight for it. I don't have to play all these games that we play here on earth, which is, if you're impressive enough, if you're wealthy enough, if you're successful enough, if you're attractive enough, if you're desirable enough, if people like you, then you matter. And then I realized, no, you actually matter inherently. And that's when my awakening happened, where I'm like, we're all living backwards. We have, our values are upside down. We are killing ourselves to try and have a place in this life. It's doesn't make sense to, the statement needing to earn a living is basically an oxymoron, in the terms of it's an inherent right to experience life. That's why our souls came here. We don't have to earn it. We're meant to enjoy it. However, we spend our lives just grinding away. And so as you did as well, these awakenings happen, and I started coming across different material, like that book I shared, The Global Awakening, that speaks to that, where it says humans have lost their way. There are people on this planet now who are trying to guide humanity back to the truth, to the heart and soul of humanity, of the truth. And I just went full force down that path, and I've been on it ever since. And as I have, it of course, grows and changes and evolves. And I have become very attuned to my intuition, to my psychic senses, to my, sort of esoteric abilities. And I'm just going to keep walking the path and see where it takes me. That's where I'm at now. And I just want to inspire people. And I'm at the point where, I sort of see it as those of us who are here on earth right now who feel this call, we're really kind of throwing a Hail Mary to humanity. We got to do what we can, and that's why I work to still build my confidence, so that I don't care what other people think. Because I've actually lost a lot of friends and even family members, in terms of like connecting. Like, I've lost the connection with family and friends because of this path. They don't agree with it. They don't understand it. They don't want to hear about it. And I have to trust that I believe this is my sole purpose. So I follow it, and I believe in the importance of it.
There's so much to unpack from what you shared, and it's all totally relatable. The exhaustion comes from living against, the grain, essentially, against the true nature of who we are as creator beings. We live, we've lived for however many thousands of years it's been in a societal structure that promotes conformity, which again is like in a direct inversion, right, of who we
Yes.
are, because out of like the 8 billion or so people on the planet, each one of us is unique. Like I always love visualizing humanity as this amazing ginormous quilt that's multicolored, and that every thread represents a human. Yeah. And like
Yes.
that's
I
all
have
of
the same vision, but it's a mosaic. I see like a
Yes.
mosaic and everybody is like a different piece. And we need
Yeah.
every single piece to have the whole picture.
Yes. Yes. And what you said about relationships in my experience, and that with my clients, have been, some of the most challenging lessons to learn, right? And a lot of us experience resistance when it comes to relationships, because we're taught again that, like if someone is our parent, or if someone is a close friend, if someone has this certain label or title in our life, that we can't move on from that relationship, right? Or that we can't be our true selves in that relationship. That stops so many people in their tracks, and I'm really passionate about educating people around that, right? Because once you start to learn more about your spiritual path and energetic frequencies, you start to understand that, those labels are just that, labels, and that some people might resonate at a similar frequency to you, but others don't, right? And it's just like at some point you have to let it go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I feel like that has been happening at such a heightened level in the past few years. I think really since 2020, not only did circumstances and society change based on what happened, yet also for people individually, shifts have been happening. And what I believe is happening is the underpinnings of our society are crumbling because of what we just spoke about. You can't operate dysfunctionally forever. You can only do it and we literally are like this machine that's trying to work non-functionally. We're like, no, we got that. Let's keep like putting this, we'll just stick a wrench in here and just, like you're just trying to delay having to address it, right? Like if your refrigerator is broken, you're like, no, if we tilt it this way and like do this and we can keep it running, you got to get a new fridge. And I think humanity is trying to deny that we have to look not, it's at a root level. We have to look at the root of what keeps breeding these conditions that we live within, which cause the majority of people to live impoverished, both at a soul level and a physical level, that cause such great violence, such greed, such anger, such a lack of love and acceptance that creates competition rather than cooperation. Because also being creator beings, just like your analogy of the quilt and mine of the mosaic, we're all meant to be working together peacefully. There's no need to compete because what you have is your own beautiful, unique note of this big symphony. Another analogy, like a like a quilt. We're all a part of the symphony. There's yours is no better than mine. They're just different. Yet we act as if that this zero sum game where if you do well, then I don't do well. So I have to fight you. And we see the repercussions of that. And it's been echoing through humanity for eons.
Mhm.
And this truly is a really pivotal point where we're making the decision of what will we do this time. Will we, because
Mhm.
civilizations have collapsed because of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love for us to go deeper on what you mentioned a couple minutes ago about how you can only go against the grain essentially for so long, right? Like that's not exactly what you said, but it reminds me of something that you and I were talking about earlier before we started this conversation, about your path and how the message that you received about moving, right? I think that is similar, but in that scenario, you answered the call.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was sharing that I was living in Bend, Oregon for almost all of last year, and it's a beautiful place. It's not too far from you, actually. Not well, it's a decent drive. I've driven from there to where you are. Um, and it's a gorgeous oasis. And I was guided there. I shared with you that I've been living a nomadic lifestyle for a few years now, and I felt called to leave on my journey. I was living in a studio in the Bay Area. So this tiny, like 300 square foot studio, which of course cost like, $1,600, even though it was like a shoebox. I loved it for the 3 years I was there. But then something just shifted in me because I had during the pandemic, I'd switched to doing a virtual practice as a therapist. And I started my own practice. And I thought, I can be wherever I want.
Mm-hmm.
As long as my clients are in California, I was like, I can change up my scenery, I can go explore. And as soon as I thought that, and I'm offering this to people who are beginning on their spiritual path. And if you start to get psychic downloads, we can explore the clairs later, but one of our clair abilities, which is like a psychic ability, is clairaudience. And it's when you hear things. And after I thought that to myself, I was sitting at my table. I met with like 5 clients that day, and I thought I should just get out of here and go explore the country and just go see some amazing places. And I walked to the bathroom and I heard, as clear as day, I heard, "You need to leave before the end of the year." And I thought, what? And this was in like August. So sure enough, I ended up getting on the road by October. And then fast forward, I ended up in Bend last year during my journeys. Bend is a remarkable place because it's been established with surrounded basically by volcanic mountains that used to be volcanic. So the whole town is built on whatchamacallit, lava, which is powerful
Like
transformational
lava
energy.
rock?
Yeah, lava rock. So I also say this to anyone listening, because if you feel called to a certain place, it's because there's something there. There's energy grids around the earth. And when different people go to these different places, they get opened energetically, opened spiritually. You shift and you grow. We're all energetic beings. And just as you said, getting pushed out, if you are in a place that is not aligned with your energy, you're going against it. You're going, just as you said, you're going against the grain. You're trying to force yourself into a place where you don't fit. It's not a match for you, and it's going to make life a lot harder. You can do it, but you might find you're getting sick a lot. You might find yourself depressed. You're not making connections. And that's another big disservice of the way that we've decided to live our lives, is people feel, just as you said, the same way we feel like, well, it's my family. I can't cut ties. I have to honor that. They say, well, this is my home. This is where I live. I can't move. I can't. And I understand, of course, it's hard to just pick up and go. I know not everyone can do that, especially if you have a family and a home. But that's why, like, we have to start rethinking the way we live. I know it sounds like a big pie in the sky idea, but number one, we should all be thinking pie in the sky, because everything can change. We can recreate the way we live. And imagine if humans were much more mobile, where we didn't have such deep attachments out of fear. A lot of it has to do with fear, where we say, okay, well, who knows if I'll be able to afford a different home, and I just want to be safe. And well, if our safety was more assured, we could move around a little bit more, which I believe we're meant to. I mean, nomadic is the way that we used to live, and so that we could utilize the different regions of the country and the world based on different seasons. Sorry, I'm kind of going off here, but just one more thing is that's also created what another huge issue is now, is our uh you know imbalanced relationship with the earth, because we have decided that we want to have access to all things agriculture and produce and food all year long. And in order to do that, we have to use unnatural chemicals, and we have to treat the earth in a completely disrespectful way. So all this to say that when we find ourselves in a place that doesn't feel aligned with us, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be against the grain. And I found that in Bend. I actually loved Bend. I thought it was going great, but it was sort of like I was spared. I think that if I had stayed there any longer, I would have become a bit sort of despondent, right? Because the energy was, I got what I needed there, was the message I got. It said, hey, you were meant to come here, but this was it. It was only meant for a beautiful short period of time, and now you got to move on. And I did, but most of us fight that. And you can see it in your where you live, in relationships, with friends or family,
Mm.
where you say, no, but this is what I know. I've been in this relationship for 5 years, and yeah, it's, it's not really, doesn't really seem to be serving me, and it's not really positive yet. It's what I know. How am I supposed to leave this? And again, no judgment. I mean, we're all just trying to figure out how to have greater connection with our hearts rather than fear, with love rather than fear. Most of us are taught to be in fear, so we don't want to make big decisions because that's a risky thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like one of the foundational pieces of making that shift is knowing what truth feels like in your body, not
Mhm.
what other people tell you is truth, you know, uh, rather not even what your mind is telling you that is truth, what you're thinking is truth. It's more about feeling that in every cell, of your being.
Yeah.
That's also a great way to get acutely connected with your intuition as well. Like there's just so much the conditioning and programming, the societal and ancestral programming is so deep. I mean, it does, I also want to paint a practical real picture for people, right? Like, it isn't all rainbows and unicorns, because there is some toxic positivity that exists, in the personal development world and even in spiritual communities as well. But like you and I don't remember if we were saying it during this conversation or before we hit record, but we were talking about how the ascension journey is really a dance. So it's important, right, I believe, to be really patient with yourself and compassionate with yourself, and to show up consistently. That's really what I believe brings sustainable, deep transformation. And even talking about transformation and healing, it's really more about remembering who we really are and that we've always been whole, right? We've never been broken. Like, that's all been a veil of illusion.
Completely, completely. And so much you said. Again, I could go off for a long time about
Yeah.
all those concepts, but it is, again, a great disservice and a great tragedy is the messaging and the programming that we have that keeps us stuck and keeps us in place. And I think in regards to trusting our process, is that just as you said, the spiritual journey isn't just a rainbow path that we walk on and we're like, la la la, and we're with unicorns and we're all happy. Part of it, unfortunately, is dis what's the word? Disassembling, breaking down the programming. And that can be painful because we have to look, it's already been established. Like, I know for me, I'm doing shadow work right now, and it's a part of like the best indicator of the stuff you need to work on are the things that make you upset, right? The things that really offend
Totally.
you, that you get really defensive about. And it's like this hot, fiery, yucky feeling, that anger, right? And it's, it's unnatural, but it feels justified because you've really come to believe something. Maybe it's that you don't like to be challenged about what you're doing because in the past you felt like nobody cared about you and didn't care what you had to say. So you don't want anybody challenging what you have to say because it's basically inner child work, right? If you've heard of that, it's you need to nurture that part of you that's like, no one cares about me. Nobody, I don't matter. So F everybody who tries to hurt me, I'll punch you in the face. We all have a little kid in there. And when it comes up, you gotta, because that's a falsehood. It came from a false belief, right? That we are not good enough, that we don't matter. So that's a part of the journey too, because it's basically what I would call your guides, your ancestors, those who are in the spirit realm really cheering us on, trying to help us through this journey, are saying, listen, sweetie, I know that you're wanting to evolve and to ascend and to grow, but you have this weight holding you down. You have this really dense energy that's still stuck in there. And dense energy doesn't get released just by, a nice, easy breezy experience. It usually comes through a bit more grit work, right? You got to kind of go through those
Well, yeah, and
difficult periods.
it only happens through your own free will. And sometimes even when we say verbally that we're ready to release something, our body might still be holding on to trauma, right? And
Yeah.
our body might be saying, oh, no, no, no. Like, or our inner child might be saying, oh, no, we're not doing that, you know? So,
Ah,
yeah, really digging in and having a willingness to go deep and understanding where those triggers come from, for sure.
yeah. And another thing I want to offer is that it's also important to remember that it's like brush strokes. There's a lot of different layers that have to be, addressed to these wounds, to these things. Cause I know for myself, I'll think, really? I'm not done yet? Like I've gone to therapy, I've seen a spiritual guide, I've done all this ascension work, I've done all these, I've gone to the different elements and salt baths and crystals, I've done all the work. Like, why am I not healed? But you have to remember that every single one of those things has helped, but it just takes a lot to really move past to it, get to the next level, to really level up and to free yourself of some of that dense weight. It could take a whole lifetime for some people.
Well,
Some
there
people
are
were just
always new layers. I
there.
mean, I
Yeah.
like to think we're eternal students. So it's just like,
Yes.
if you can just get to the place where you're willing to let go of the resistance that you have to check something off the list, and why isn't it done? That's programming, right? It's like if you just
Yeah.
surrender to the path and lean into being curious rather than viewing the journey as a struggle and something that's a task.
Absolutely. Yeah. Surrender is definitely the word, right? It's letting go and just trying to flow the best you can, even when the flow seems rocky. And it does. I know again, for me, I'm going through like a particularly difficult time where because these things can involve I've been having nightmares. I've been having like attacks of anger and frustration with different situations, and it doesn't feel good. And that's when it's hard to surrender. Yet, you have to recognize that some of that anger can be a positive thing. It's helping you to release it. Sometimes you're meant to feel your anger so you can let it kind of work through you. The problem is when anger just keeps reproducing for the same thing because the wound hasn't been healed, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. What else are you feeling guided to bring forward?
I mean, there's so much. Well, so one thing I do want to offer, so I'm in my personal work, professional work now, I'm really shifting from doing therapy more into being a spiritual guide. And because I have a podcast, the Women Awaken podcast, which you'll be a guest on soon.
Yes, very exciting.
And thank you. And this year, 2023 was really exciting because, okay, well, here's another point I'll make. At the beginning of last year, I almost was going to give up my podcast because I was doing one episode a week, just only guest episodes, but it wasn't gaining traction. And of course, the physical mentality, the ego mentality, earth mentality was I'm not going to do this. I'm not getting anything out of it. It's not what I thought it would be. And this isn't growing enough. But when I thought about not doing it, it made me so sad. I felt the thought of not sharing the the concepts and the, different spiritual ideas that I believe are so important, just made me very sad. So instead, I decided to get a coach. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to put everything on the line. I'm going to invest in a coach. I'm going to work really hard this year on my podcast. And if it still doesn't come to fruition, I'll let it go and I'll trust. But I'm going to do, because that's the balance, right? You have to surrender, but you can't just expect to literally just be floated through to where you want to go. It's like a quote that I like that says, pray to the heavens, but keep paddling to the shore. Right?
Mhm,
Like if you're stuck in a canoe in the middle of the ocean, you can't just pray above. You pray, but you also do what you can. And you trust that heaven will then send a big wave that's going to push you home. You understand?
mhm.
So you have to still do some of the legwork. So I worked at it, and sure enough, my podcast grew. I finally had an audiences, members that were actually reaching out to me, which was like all I wanted to do was start creating community around people who felt how I do, which is let's mobilize, let's come together. Those of us who want to start this movement that want to help shift Earth as much as we can while we're here, shift humanity, put the word out that this isn't working for us anymore. And so as I've been connecting with my audience, I've started doing more spiritual guidance, and then I'm helping people who are either just getting started on their path or are curious about it, right? They might say, well, I keep having this like instinct to do something. I keep seeing the same numbers, just things like that. So they're like, what does this mean? And can I trust it? So I've been working more with people like that. So what I'd like to share with people is that some ways to begin working on your spiritual path is one, just what you said. And I think it's the most important one is learning to be in the stillness and listen to your own voice and your own inner wisdom, your truth. Because just what you said, Jennifer, that's so important to recognize is that from the time we are born, we are told what we're supposed to think and feel and do. And that also is so unnatural for a human being. We literally come here to be fully expressed as our unique essence, as our unique part of the quilt. But instead, we're like, oh gosh, I got to change this and I have to do this and I have to look just like that person because that's what we're supposed to do. But yet we're all in such conflict with ourselves because we know deep down in our soul that that's not really what we're meant for. So we're trying to have these roles that are not for us and it's not working. But when you take that time to go within and say, well, what do you think? What do you think, free of what anyone else tells you and what anyone else might offer? What feels true to you? And also, she said, what does it feel like in your body? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I often encourage people, like, let's say you're looking for a new job and you get two different job offers. And people are like, well, you got to take that one. That one makes more sense. It pays more. And you take time and you sit with it. And you say, okay, I'm going to take job A. And you just feel clenched and like stressed and okay, well, that's us. I mean, and you say, okay, I'm going to take job B and your shoulders relax and you feel calm. It's your body, it's your intuition, it's your essence telling you that's what's more aligned, not the job that everyone else has to take. It's the one that feels right to you. And you can do that with every decision you make. So that I feel like is the inception point to the spiritual path is recognizing I have my own direct connection with what I would call source or a higher power or the universe itself. You don't have to ask anybody else.
Absolutely. Such valuable wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing that. Whitney, for those who are feeling called to connect with you more deeply, where is the best place for them to go?
Thank you. Yeah. So what I offer is if people find me on Instagram, which is at Women Awaken, if you add me on there and send me a direct message, I we can talk about how we can connect. We can set up a consult call. And I like to pull a card. I'm also an oracle and
Fun.
tarot reader. So I like to do that. And if you're not on Instagram, because I know not everybody is, you can email me at Whitney at womenawaken.com. And of course, I have my website, Women Awaken. And yeah, I'd love to get on a call with you and find out how we might be able to work together this year. I'm also going to start offering women's groups to hold space for women who collectively are feeling this call, this spiritual opening, and wanting to really commune with others. Because I've also gotten a lot of people telling me it's really lonely to be on this path and feel like, is anyone else going through this? Is because just like I said, that's what's happened with me and my family is that they just don't get it. And that's okay. They're on their own path. Yet it's important to find people who do speak your language and who are resonating at the same energy that you are. Right.
Absolutely. That's the thing. As soon as you stop resisting and start truly allowing yourself to project, like your true frequency, then you'll automatically attract the people in, right? That get you.
Yes. Yes. I
Essentially.
will say though, just be mindful because this has happened to me. You'll also attract the opposite because the universe in a way is trying to show you have to assert yourself. You have to really, because here's the thing about the universe. It will grant you every wish you make. But the thing is, most people are not consistent, right? If you listen to any video on manifestation, let's say the reason why it doesn't work is because you might ask for something once, but then kind of let it go and not, you have to be so consistent. So sometimes when you say, I'm ready to open myself to my tribe, somebody who is not aligned with you at all is going to sweep in and try to put you down and tell you what's up. And it's the universe trying to help you build your muscles and say, this is not for me. So
Yes.
I just want to offer that because I know I have gotten discouraged and been like, what the heck? Why is this presenting itself in my life right now when I thought I was doing great and I was going to find my people? And then you get all these weird experiences. It's all a part of helping you become the best at the best possible conditions to move into your next chapter of life.
Absolutely. Whitney, what a pleasure to have you on today. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. And for those who are listening, the links to connect with Whitney will be included in the show notes as well. What a blessing. So much fun. Thank you so
So
much.
fun. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, and your beautiful awakened heart.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening to Path of the Awakened Heart. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or pathoftheawakenedheart.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about living with an awakened heart and navigating your ascension journey, visit me at jenniferspore.com.